Just know that I don't argue about who I am. I am who
Say that again.
I do not argue and debate about who I am. So don't ever come to me with that because you will get left on red.
Well,
Just
there
that.
you go. All right, so we are back with another episode of The Awakened Soul, and this time I have a special guest to continue the uh, series on deconstructing transphobia. And so this week we are joined by Miss Toni Bryce herself. What's going on?
Oh, just being the girl.
So you are an actress, a blogger, a public speaker, a model, a writer. What don't you do?
Dang, did I say all that? No, yeah, um, yeah. I don't really blog too much anymore, but I have like when I was blogging, I still have my website up for people to like go read and I guess read about where I was at that time. But that's still up. But yeah, I mean pretty much everything else. Yeah, actress for sure. I do campaign modeling for like the Stop HIV ATL or if anybody Fulton County Board of Health. I'm like on their testing vans that they drive around Atlanta.
Oh,
And then public speaking, like yesterday, I just did a panel for their Trans Week for Georgia State University. So, I try to get out there and advocate as best as I can. I wish I was going to the march this weekend, but I'm not. So shout out to everybody going to the march. But
how'd you get into being an advocate? Because it's already so difficult. I like to talk about trans and LBGT issues at all, but like for you to be an advocate and also like your own campaign pictures, like your pictures out there. How did you? What made you start getting comfortable and realize that you wanted to start doing stuff like that?
well, outside of like the whole trans advocacy thing, it really started in college. When I went to college, I remember my freshman year, 2009, Missouri State University, and I became the parliamentarian or extension called the Association of Black Collegians. And then
Okay.
I advanced pretty quickly in the organization. And then that following year, actually, yeah, following year 2010, I think I was vice president. So like it started very early on. But I had brought on for World AIDS Day, which is December 1st every year. I had brought a testing agency from the community to come on campus to test the people. And I would always go first, just lead by example. And
Hmm.
that just really where it started from. So now I'm being here in Atlanta and being asked to do stop HIV, ATL, things like that. It is kind of natural for
Hmm.
me. I feel like it's just continuing something I've already done, but just now not on a collegiate level.
Okay, that's what's
Hmm.
up. So, I mean, we got to introduce you. It's your first time on the Have you ever been? I know you do everything. Have you ever been on a podcast before?
Um, I've been on a radio station show, but I don't think I've done a podcast yet.
Okay.
I don't recall. So I think this might be my first
Look
one.
at that. Look at God. So, I like because it's your first time. I do want to like get into you and who you are. So, I have a question. You can answer it however it comes to your mind. Who
Okay.
is Toni Bryce?
You said who is Toni Bryce?
Yes, ma'am.
Who is Toni Bryce? Well, world I am. I mean, everything that you named, obviously, those things that I do. But in terms of who I am a woman, a black woman of trans experience. I am an older sister. I am. Oh, oh my God, I'm sorry, y'all can't hear in my mouth. I'm an older sister. I am a college educated person. I am a loving, kind hearted person. Yeah. What else am I? I think I'm pretty well rounded. I'm a Scorpio, so I'm pretty outgoing, but I love my peace and quiet. I'm very much a homebody. I really don't. A lot of people think I live a life where I'm just on the go all the time, and I'm like, if you only knew where I am all the time, which is right here in my room. But yeah, I'm chill. I'm cool. I'm complex.
Yeah, yeah, we all are. We're all a little weird, right?
Just a little bit.
So, the first thing that I want to talk to you about on this topic is your transition story, and however comfortable you feel about opening up about it, whatever level you want to go into. But just because I think it's important in doing this series is to educate people on what that transition is really like, because us, like me as a cisgender black man, I will never understand what it's like to go through that transition. So I hope, like in me educating myself, also hope to educate my listeners. So if you feel like educating us and just telling us about everything from your mindset to how it affected your family. You said you're an older sister, so like your siblings adjusting as well. What is that story like?
Well, I feel like a lot of us who are truly trans, um, trans women, trans men, or for my gender non-conforming people, I feel like a lot of us that grew up, we knew, but we didn't have the language growing up, and I feel like a lot of times growing up, the language was gay, gay, gay because I always got the you look like a girl, you write and talk like a girl, you walk like a girl, and just all of that foolishness. And but aside from all of that, I always knew internally how I felt. I remember as a little kid, there used to be this one outfit, and I have a picture in it where every time I wore it, I just felt like the girl.
Mhm.
I really did. It was an outfit that really gave me comfort and kind of in my own way affirmed me and who I was as a young child, but again, didn't really have the language. And it wasn't until high school, I want to, even the end of middle school, beginning of high school, where I met the first trans women I had ever met. There were a set of twins, and then they had a good girlfriend, so it was three of them. But the thing about it was, they were doing things that I have never indulged in, and I just felt like what I did was I internalized their experiences and made them my own. I felt like if I was going to transition, I had to do this or I had to do that, and that's really not the case. I really didn't have to do any of that.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until I was in college and I was in Missouri State Gospel Choir, vice president, event coordinator, and all of that good stuff. And it was one year, 2012, where I call it the year of self love. And I just really had to come to terms with like, this is who I am. This is what I need to do to really live life and be happy. But how am I going to go about doing it? Because I had internalized for so long that I needed to do all of those other things. I needed to like come up with a new game plan of this is how I want my transition to be and this is what I want my story to be. So when I was 25, I called my mama on my birthday and I was like, this is what's happening. This is what I'm gonna do. And I don't really think she believed me. But then that following April, we went to my first hormone replacement therapy appointment, and I started hormones on June 2nd, 2016. So that's officially medically when I started transitioning.
Okay.
And as far as like siblings, I feel like a lot of times it's hard for family because they feel like, oh, we have to transition you, or we remember you by this name, and or by these pronouns. And one thing that I've learned is relationships are optional.
Sorry. Hold on.
So you're fine. Okay.
My dog came down here and just knocked down my lighting and everything. I apologize. Go
Look at
ahead.
that. But one thing I've learned when it comes to like those kind of things, relationships are optional, right? So I have an
Mhm.
option to be in relationship with you. And if you are going to be disrespectful, dead name me, misgender me, I don't have to be in relationship with you. And while I understand that family is while they're transitioning with you, I'm still in transition myself. So you can go over there and deal with what you feel like you need to deal with for however long you feel like you need to deal with it, while I'm over here living my life. So that's kind of the approach I've taken, and with that, I feel like it's been effective because at the end of the day, like it's just thanks for support and love, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to be good either way. And I think when they realize things like that, I think they start to come around because they have came around. In terms of my direct siblings, though, they've always pretty much been supportive. I've never really had an issue with them, and they're
Okay.
young too, so like well, isn't it Generation X after millennial?
I
Is that what it is?
believe so.
So they're Generation X. So, they're growing up in a generation where all of these things are going to be normalized or common to them when they're our age or older. So it's like, okay, y'all understand what it is. You accept it and you move on. So then I'm their sister when they introducing me to their friends. That's my big sister and et cetera, et cetera. And it feels good to hear that. And even my mom, whenever we're going where we're going. She'll say my daughter and her, and I'm like, okay, girl, I see you. So I'm happy. I'm in a good space with family.
That's good. That's good. And was what was it like before you got like, and you may have always been comfortable in your own skin, but like when you, I would imagine that you probably went through a time where you may have been self-conscious during your transition, right? Or
Um,
were you always kind of had that attitude of either you're going to accept me or you're not?
no, I really didn't always have that attitude, especially with the dating thing. But in terms of just in general, I was always a person that I never really identified as gay, right? Because I
Mm,
never felt like I was a man that was attracted to a man. I never felt that way. So
okay.
even on the gay label, I was like, this don't feel right. Not because I don't want to. Sorry, I don't mean it like that. But like this isn't what I feel. Like this isn't my truth. And so I was just doing research and understanding language and terms. I found the term androgynous.
Mm,
Actually, I was watching B Love Scott on YouTube, and well, that I don't know what their pronouns are, but B Love, we just gonna say B Love, taught
mhm.
me the word androgyny, and I googled it, and I was just like, wow, like this is really how I was feeling at the time, because I wasn't comfortable with gay, but I also wasn't comfortable with transitioning because of what I internalized. I thought I would need to do so. I've always had a look that kind of caught people off guard, like, is that a girl? Is that a boy? Is that a girl? Is that a boy? Like I've always walked that fine line.
Okay.
So for me to like start transitioning and live life how I'm living life, it just I don't know. It wasn't hard. It just felt natural for me.
Okay. That's what's up.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to anyone who's like thinking about transitioning or going through it and that time period where they're contemplating it or not? Like what would be if they came to you for like mentorship, what would be your advice to them?
Well, the two things that I would say for sure is I know a lot of times people are hesitant in transitioning because of relationships with family and what are they going to say and do? As I said earlier, relationships are optional and you don't have to be in a relationship with anybody that's going to be disrespectful and not honoring who you are. And then second of all, because I've experienced this as well, you don't internalize somebody else's journey because your journey is your journey and your truth is your truth. And so those are the best two things I can offer somebody because those are the two things I dealt with the most.
Okay. That's what's up. So you are an actress at
I
a
am.
time where I think Pose is put on like a completely like the show Pose is put it in a different perspective, like the trans actress and how powerful they can be and why they like you didn't see a trans actress too much too often and now like for it to be condensed onto the show and I feel like really been a launching pad like Angelica Ross who played Candy in that show is actually in the new season of American Horror Story. Who
Mhm.
knows if she would have got that opportunity if it wasn't for that show because there are a lot of talented women on that show who may have never gotten that platform. So like how did you break into acting? How did you get into it and was it scary for you at first?
Well, my origins in acting really started in theater when I was in high school, and I went to my first audition for crew. I didn't start off on stage immediately, but I went for a crew, and I was the dramaturg, which is basically a publicity person for a play. And then that was my introduction to theater. And from then I went to college. Didn't do any acting in college, but I did hosting, a lot of hosting. And really, if you think about it, that is a form of acting because you're on
That is
stage
true.
being a personality. And I moved to Orlando, Florida when I graduated because I was still with my company. And I was like, you know what, this job isn't feeding me. It's not feeding my passions. Like, what is it? What is it? And it was acting, obviously, but I just hadn't really accepted it because I was trying to choose stability over risk, like a risky type.
Hmm.
Because baby, this life is real. One day I'm booked, the next I'm like, woo, somebody gonna call me. And so I did like a few student film things as background, and then that was it. But when I moved here, I quit my good full time job, and then I started doing background for TV shows like Star. Like a lot of people have seen me on Star doing background, The Quad, oh, like a bunch of TV shows in the beginning. That was in 2016. And then I was like, you know what? Enough is enough with that. I really have to start working towards my own stuff. And so I had booked my first web series. I had booked my first indie film. And it kind of just went from there. Now, in terms of the whole trans thing, I my first film web series, my first project, I had just started transitioning literally the first month in my transition. So I was like, I look at that clip and I'm like, oh my God, yes. Why did somebody tell me? And it just kind of went from there. And I was kind of shocked because I thought when I first started, I was like, oh, I need to tell everybody I'm trans, so just to let them know. But I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm a woman, so and I'm acting. So if I go to this background situation, why do I have to tell these people I'm trans? I'm in the background anyway.
Yeah.
Or if I'm going out for a role, at that point, if it's a cis role, you're gonna see me audition. So if you see it or you clock it in my audition, then you see it or you clock it, and either you want it or you don't. So I stopped doing that whole trans thing because at that time there was, I think maybe Orange is the New Black had just started showing,
Hmm.
maybe something like that, and that was it. So it really wasn't no visibility on TV. There were no roles for us. It wasn't given all of that. So it was really still new, even in the indie world.
Okay. Okay. Have you seen the opportunity for roles open up more lately?
Um, yeah, I
Okay.
definitely would say yes because hold on, let me adjust because my
Okay.
hold is it charging? Okay, there we go. I think we good. Okay. Um, yes, yes.
Okay.
You got Pose, you got Transparent, which was on Amazon Prime. You had Doubt at one point, but it had ended up getting canceled. You had Star. So yeah, I think people are finally realizing, for whatever intentions they have behind it, it's their
Hmm.
own intentions. But from the outside looking in, it could look like the people are getting with the program, and it's like they are finally not just casting us as prostitute number one and two on Law and Order, but actually writing stories that are inspired by us, and then not only writing the stories that are inspired by us and by us, but letting us tell those stories as trans women. So that I think is dope. And I think even though shows have come before Pose, it was really Pose. I think that really kind of like changed the game for stuff like that because it was all, well, despite a few people, 90% female, trans female cast. So.
Yeah. And I think like the power imposed is that it's educating people on the trans community, but also it's giving us an insight on like how alienated trans people can feel from the rest of the world. Especially like I didn't even know, I had no idea, no education on the ballroom scene at
Mhm.
all. But like just to think of how many talented women were in that ballroom scene, walking or whatever, that couldn't break into modeling all because people were worried about the wrong shit.
Mhm.
So
Well, so one woman from Ballroom did. Her name was Tracy Norman or Tracy Africa in Ballroom, and she did break into modeling. She was on. I don't know if you've heard about this before, but she was on the box of Claral hair products for
okay.
the color. But then somebody outed her, and then that kind of ended her career. And now in 2019, the people are circling back 30 years ago to be like, let me give you your just due. Let me give you your respect because
Yeah.
what happened back then was obviously not right. And so now let's try to make it up to you, so to speak. But and the crazy part is, I think where that happened, she was on a set for an Essence shoot, and then years later, now she is in Essence. So
That's crazy.
it
That's
shows
wild.
growth. It
Yeah.
definitely shows growth.
Yeah, we're getting there as a people. We're it's slow but surely getting there. I mean, who knows what it's going to be like 10 years from now. It's been a substantial growth in like the last year. Like really the last year or two has been substantial growth. So let's hope that that continues. What we're going to get is start getting into some of the more heavier topics. Are you ready for this?
I think so. We'll see.
And I have something that I'm going to ask you just based
Okay.
off something that you posted, but we'll talk about that. I'm sure you can guess what
Okay.
that is. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to do, we did a little bit of it with you talking about your transition story, but
Okay.
like education, and I think that's how we really can break stigmas and we really can break down walls is people really getting educated and learning more about a life that they have no idea about. And so I think a lot of times people are afraid because they don't know how to ask. They are afraid for backlash, and I think sometimes too people are afraid to come off transphobic just because they don't know and they don't know how to ask that question. So I want to commend you for coming here and letting me ask you these questions and being all down for it because I know it can be a little standoffish. But what do you think are the most common misconceptions that people in general have about trans women or trans people in general?
I think there is an expository type stigma over us where, we expose men for being attracted to us. I think a lot of them think we are in sex work. I think a lot of them think we are confused and sick in the mind. I think a lot of them think we're men.
Mhm.
A lot of them think, um, and I think a lot of them think we have this agenda of intentions to, I don't know, like some like convert people. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, like, yeah. I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, we've been watching cis people on TV programs for years. And, as my good girlfriend, I forgot who said this, but it's cis people that created us trans people. So it's like, okay, who am I going to convert? I
You
mean,
got you got a point there. You got a good point there.
other than my father is cis, and I am who I am today. So,
Yeah, and even the last episode I did, I had Jaden Hollywood on, who he lives in Atlanta too. He's a gay black man, and he mentioned how people have this fear of like seeing gay people on TV are going to turn their children gay, and he made the comparison. Well, if that's the case, then seeing straight people on TV would have stopped gay people from becoming gay in the first place. So it's
right,
like people have so much fear based around really stupid ideas when you think about it. People are going to be who they're going to
yeah.
be.
And
Um,
that's it. Yeah.
yeah.
I always say, just let the people be the people. Like, why are we policing everything? Just let the people be the people. But you can police everything in your own household, but you can't police who I am and what I do. So,
Yeah. And then even sometimes like in your own household, you only have so long to do that until your kids flee the coop and then what?
exactly. Then now reality gonna have to say, now you've been dealing with it from afar. Now you got to deal with it in your own house. So it's
Yeah.
like, now what you gonna do?
So what would you say is the most difficult thing that you face day to day?
The most thing that I face day to day, I mean, if I make it a career thing, that's always difficult because I think anybody wants to succeed in their career, and so just submitting for auditions and doing self tapes and submitting them and seeing if I'm gonna get the audition. That is always difficult and that's kind of like mentally draining because you work so hard to try to make it, and within this industry, it's very. Ugh. And then you put trans on top of that, and it's already so few roles for us currently. And then it's like it's a nice sized pot of us out here that are really trying to make it, that already have names and that are up and coming. So I think that's really difficult when dealing on a day to day basis in terms of career. But in terms of me, I would probably say dating. I've been single for 14 years. I've never had a boyfriend. I've never dated a man. But I guess a lot of times there are, a lot of people think, oh, your inbox must be full and da 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 da. And I'm like, it can be, but that doesn't mean it's with attention that I want.
Yeah.
It's attention that I attract just based off of who I am and how I identify. I don't have to do nothing else but say I'm trans and the inbox gonna fill up just off of that. So you kind of just gotta weed out the genuine with the people that have, other intentions. So that for me is probably the difficult part. So
And
dating.
that was part of the reason why I like in the video that you responded to that got you here on this podcast that got us to schedule this interview is that I was honestly afraid to go out and send DMs or whatever because not because of my intent being wrong because I know how much ill intent is out there and I didn't want to be in the mix of that. So I'm like, well, let me put my face on it and hopefully that makes more people comfortable to really come out and be open to talk to me because I
Mm,
can only imagine, even me as like a cisgender black man who's in podcasting, my DMs could be fucking ridiculous. And
yeah,
that's not even compared to women. So like it's just I struggle with that. So I'm glad that you mentioned
yeah. It's tough.
that.
Don't
Do you
catch me on a weak feeling day. I might just entertain some of your foolishness. Just 'cause I'm just like, oh. But baby, don't catch me on one on my good days. You might get cussed out.
So I mean, just because you mentioned it, I know it's on our list, but I told you before we're gonna bounce back and forth all over this list. But you mentioned dating, so I think this is a good time to go into it. Like,
Okay.
I think that me as being on the outside looking in, the question that I have so often is trans women say trans women are women, which I believe that, and I'm all for that. But then why do we get the things of feeling like you have to, women have to expose men who are with trans women? If trans women are women, why do some still feel the need to expose a man when they get pissed off by them? And when you see that, what are your opinions on it?
Well, I think well, this is how I feel about some of the exposing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a cis woman that has children, right? And the father of those children are not is not doing anything. She might blast him and get on Facebook and say how, a deadbeat he is and et cetera, et cetera. And technically that's exposing, right? I'm exposing you for how much of a deadbeat or whatever it is that you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like when it comes to a trans woman in terms of okay, I think a lot of it happens within sex work. And it's more than likely because you didn't pay me or you didn't pay me what the rate was agreed upon.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of times I feel like some people think based on the name, if it is a celebrity, they think they might benefit off of it. And it's like, well, sis, you're really not going to benefit off of it, really, because at the end of the day, you're only going to have so much time to live in this moment, and then that moment is going to fade. And
Yeah.
then the part that I don't like about it all over, or just period, is whenever you give the public that kind of attention, or I shouldn't say that attention, when you give the public that kind of opportunity to look at our community to say, oh, they like to expose men, et cetera, what they're really paying attention to, or really what they're focusing on, is to say that, oh, these are men, or these ones were men. Oh, well, if he was with her and she still has this and he gay and da da da. And it's just like, if you are attracted to women and your attraction is inclusive to trans women, then why would I expose you? What am I exposing? That you like women? That's how
Yeah.
I see it, and that's my mindset on it. I will never ever expose a soul about who I've slept with or whoever. If that man is not openly embracing me and I've agreed to that, and we keep what we do private, then that's what we do, and that's between us. I'm not doing that because I know what kind of attention that brings, and I don't like that attention already when I see the other people doing it. So why would I even do it? And then on top of that, me being an actress and me trying to make it, why would I even give myself that kind of press and attention?
Yeah.
I'm just going to have whatever 15 minutes or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, so I'm still left with a career that I'm trying to pursue, and nobody's going to take serious because of what I just did. So I'm just not here for it. I'm not here for it at all. I understand some situations if the person didn't pay or whatever the case may be, but in general, I'm just not here for the exposing situation. I'm just not. I don't like it. I'm not here for it.
What do you think? You mentioned it, and that's kind of what I was talking about in your story. And I know you mentioned it as a joke, but because we're talking about it seriously now, what do you think of the sex work in the trans community? Like, is it
Mm.
because I feel like it's different levels to it. Some people do it because they for acceptance. Some do but it's the same way for anyone who gets into sex work. I think it's the same regardless trans or not. But I think that there's this view or opinion that it's higher in the trans community, which I don't necessarily know that that's true or not. But what are your views on it?
Well, I think the reason why I think for one, the trans women population is obviously smaller than those of the cis population, and then us
Mm-hmm.
black trans women is obviously smaller of the population of cis black women. So for us to do it, it looks like, I'm sure percentage wise, number wise, it might look like we are more so into sex work, but when you look at the numbers compared to the communities they come from, it might not be that way.
Okay.
But how I feel about it, I just feel like, what, how whatever how do I feel about it? I don't not like it. I don't disrespect it. I actually think those girls are very brave
Mm-hmm.
to get out there and to, make money how they're making their money to provide, whether it's for survival, whether it's for transition. Um, I think they're brave because I know that that's going to have a big mental impact on them when it comes to actual relationships, when it comes to trusting men, when it just comes to how their perspective of men in general. And I've seen that firsthand. So on that aspect, like I respect that you can get out there and do it, but I just know it's just, I don't know, it's just not for me. That's not the path that I wanted to take. And when I was speaking earlier about internalizing other people's experiences, the girls that I first saw, that's what they were doing.
Okay.
They were doing sex work. They were writing bad checks and doing writing checks for car rental cars, and they would never return a rental car. They would just let the rental car get towed away, and then they would go. They would repeat this cycle, and I was just like, no, like I don't want to do that. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
And when I first graduated from high school, I got accepted into the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, and that was in New York City. And a girl I knew at the time, she had went to New York the year before me for fashion school. And our dorms, the way the conservatory and the institute work, they shared the same dormitory. And so I was like, oh girl, we gonna roommate together and etc. And this was in 2009, which is why I was very intentional about the year.
Okay.
And I couldn't get the loans to go, so that's why I ended up going to Missouri State. But what happened with her is she got there, she seen trans women, she was, I guess she felt some kind of inspiration to say, I can finally be me. And so she was inspired to do sex work. And that led to her dropping out of school. And it led to, oh, I'm just going to do this for my surgeries, to now, years and years later, it's still a thing for her. And I remember her telling me one day, she was like, I don't know how you sit up here and work a job and wait 2 weeks to get paid when you can be sitting up here and have about two or three clients and get what you get every 2 weeks. And when you put it like that, I'm like, well, girl, you right. Like, hold on, let me reevaluate my life real quick. And so, but I guess my thing is, I just want to hold on to that not being my narrative so bad. Because when I mean to tell you, every time I hear somebody speak about it, that is their story. And I just be like, not that it's a bad story, because it's not a bad story. That's just what
Mm.
you have to do. But it's just not my story. It's just not my story, and I'm happy about it because I said I didn't want it to be my story, and so far I've kept that. And so I guess that's just my perspective. And then I'm also here for it because I'm like, if I'm up here laying around for free, I might as well be out there making my money.
Okay.
If I'm struggling to pay bills and feed myself and living a certain life, but I'm out here having sex for free. Like, no, go make your money, sis. That's how I feel about it.
I feel that. Do you? And so, it is it safe to say that it's like a great test of your will that you haven't gone into that?
It
Yeah.
is. It
Yeah.
definitely is, because when I mean to tell you, it's some days I think about it. I'm just like, damn. Like, what am I doing? Do you know how much the people would pay? You know what I'm saying? Like, I even think about it. And I've even gone as far as to be like, okay, well, maybe I can't do the sex work, like the room after room, man after man, but maybe I can do a sugar daddy, because at least if I'm being sexual or encountering that person in any kind of way, it's consistent and it's one person. And I'm like, even when I thought I could open up to that, I still find it like it's a struggle for that, because I'm like, well, damn, is that still sex? Yeah, sex work. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, I just don't want it to be my story, and sometimes it makes stuff so difficult. But no.
That's fair. So, and you mentioned how you've been single for 14 years. So what, like, how do you tell the difference between a man who's like genuinely interested in Toni, the person, than fetishizing Toni, the transgendered woman?
Um, I think a lot of times it comes out in the approach, the
Okay.
immediate approach. It comes with, nude pictures and videos and let's link up culture. Um, yeah, I feel like it come and even the ones that try to feel like, oh, how are you doing today? Okay, well let's see let's see what they're trying to do. to get
Hmm.
what they want, and it's still not going to work for me. But I feel like men that have it, and it's only been a few. It's only been a few that I feel like have been really genuine. Or I don't know. I feel like I think it's a vibe, it's the connection, it's the time we take to actually get to know each other. If we do have a sexual conversation, because I do feel that it's important to have
Hmm.
sexual conversations as grown people who will eventually encounter sex. Um, uh, Let it be a moment of education to say this is what I like and don't like, and then let it pass just like any other conversation. And when we need to revisit it, we can. But I feel like, and another big thing for me is consistency. If you have been consistent, then that lets me know that consistent in terms of us talking and get to know each other. Because some people are very consistent about wanting a piece. They're very consistent. I was a virgin in 2016, and the man that messaged me in 2016 is still messaging me today. So it's like, I know you don't want to be with me. You just want a piece.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say inconsistency in terms of the getting to know you.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Um, so to get back into like the education piece of it, I know we kind of got sidetracked, but it happened naturally. But we'll see where we go with this one. How do we truly learn to be an ally to the LGBT community? Like what makes you when you see someone that's asking you questions or that's speaking on things, like what makes you realize that they're really trying to be an ally more so than just using it as like to appear as an ally, I guess I should say.
Hmm. Um, I feel like how, because yesterday when I did the student panel at Georgia State University, when you look into the audience, I've seen a few cis women, and then I've seen a few LGBT people, and it wasn't many people, right? And so one of my comment to them was, well, no, not my comment, but a comment from one of the panelists to them was, grab people. If you want somebody to understand what's going, not necessarily accept, but understand, bring them in on the conversation, right?
Mm,
Whether it's family members, whether it's friends, etc. Sometimes we have to invite some of these people in on the conversation when the space is exclusively, not exclusively, but when the space is predominantly LGBT, because us sitting around talking to each other is not going to always do the,
yeah.
work wonders. So I feel like inviting people in on the conversation, but not even just inviting people in on the conversation. I think people have to also want to and be willing to educate themselves. And what do you do with that education? Do you spread that education, or do you just read about it and say, girl, forget about all that? It just kind of, I guess it just kind of depends. And then a lot of times, too, I can hear in how people speak if they are allies and not. And
Okay.
a lot of times it's about language, because some people feel like, well, that's y'all language. I don't have to use that language. Well, if you feel like you don't have to use it, well, girl, okay. Ally of mine, if you feel like
Yeah.
you have to do something that's going to be in support of and respectful to a certain community of people. But these days, you never know.
Yeah.
Like you say, you never know if the people faking the funk for an interview, for a photo, an opportunity just to say I did something with the community or not. But
Yeah, and like you mentioned in that of like just a photo or to say they're doing something in the community, that like it used to always be the black vote going in, heading into the elections that people worry about, but
mhm.
it's really trans issues are starting to really take a forefront in people's presidential platforms.
Yeah,
Trump's like, and so like Trump rolled back protections on trans Americans. I recently, in like this year, I can't remember exactly what month it is, but I found out that there was actually a defense that people can use that if they feel like a gay or trans person is coming on to them, that and they thus attack that gay or transgender person, it doesn't get them off, but it gets them a lesser sentence. I can't remember the name of the law, but it's like 40 states have that, and I'm just like, that
is
is really
that,
disgusting.
is that Sandra Brown or is that
Is that
something else?
no? It's something. It's very similar to stand your ground, but it's basically saying that it's like they use it as a temporary insanity plea, basically. So to say that if me and you are at a bar and you come on to me, I can say that I felt unsafe because you're trans, and thus I attacked you, and it can get me a lesser sentence. It's
And I think
ridiculous.
I know what you're talking about. I just don't remember the name of it it, but I
Yeah.
think I know what you're talking about.
So and like when you see stuff like this, like as we're heading into the 2020 election, like it's important to know people who just want to appear aligned with the trans community to try to get that vote, and people are actually doing things to help improve the lives of the trans community and taking things more serious. And like, do you pay attention to politics? Is it too much to you? Like, 'cause for some people, and I understand it, I don't judge anyone who's like, I just don't get into politics because there's so much bullshit out there nowadays, and it's really is a headache, and you have to bob and weave to know who to pay attention to, who not to. The actual next Democratic debate is actually here in Columbus. So they'll all be here. I'm gonna try to go to it, but it's just like, well, let me ask you: do you pay attention to the election right now, or do you just not have time for
So, as unfortunate as this sounds, I am one of those people that are just like, it's too, like a lot of it is just too much. I have paid attention to certain people like Elizabeth Warren, where she has been very vocal about the
it?
trans community, even listing all of the name of the murder, because not dead or passed away or whatever, but murdered trans women this year thus far. And I think things like that really stand out to people like me. And I think for me, when it comes down to it, of course, I feel like um I educate myself on their platforms and what they're doing when it comes down to like, okay, it's really getting down to the nitty gritty. Like, and my vote matters, and I definitely need to go out and vote. So when it comes to that particular point, I'm definitely educating myself on what it is that's going on. But in general, I actually kind of don't mind watching the presidential debates because I think it's interesting, kind of like to hear their perspectives, their platforms. But I'm just really, and I never have actually been a political person. When I was in middle school, we did like a mock voting election,
Mm-hmm.
and I voted for George Bush. So that just lets you know I'm not a political person. And then I think back about that all the time. I'm like, what the hell was I doing voting for a George Bush? But I will say when Obama was elected into office, I think a lot of black people specifically started really paying attention and really trying to get involved. But yeah, I would say for me, I think once it gets down to the nitty gritty, that's when I probably start more so doing my research and trying to understand, okay, so what person am I voting for? Who's going to be the next leader for me that's going to make a difference? But I will just shout out specifically Elizabeth Warren because she is dope and especially more specifically in supporting our community.
Yeah, and you mentioned it too, how she mentioned all the trans women that were killed, and that is one of our topics. There have been over 20 documented cases of trans women being killed in 2019. Now we know that that number is lower because a lot of times when trans women are killed, they are misgendered. They're listed as
Yeah.
their birth gender, so that goes unnoticed. But like, how does that affect you, and like, how do you live your day to day life? Are you always looking over your corner? I mean, over your shoulder? Does it make you afraid to like go out sometimes? I know you say you're a homebody, but I would imagine that it has to have you afraid a little bit, right?
You know, honestly, if I'm very truthful, no. And I say that because I know how I live my life. However, I do know that you can be in the wrong place at the wrong times as
Mm-hmm.
well. But I also know that I am the protector of me, period. Like I just protect me at all costs. And I purposefully and intentionally try not to ever put myself in certain situations that I know could possibly go wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whether it's going to the cis bars and clubs, which I don't go out anyway. But if I was like, I'm avoiding that because men are gonna be in your face, and then if they don't know, then somebody gonna try and clock you and then spill your tea, and then that might not be safe. Or if it's certain environments, I'm just always in my head about making sure I'm in a good space. But do I necessarily think about it whenever I'm out and about? I don't. I really just don't have that. I guess I really don't have that thought process. It
Okay.
really yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm
I mean,
good.
and what you said there was on point. Like, you are your own protector, and the fact that you are that aware of your own safety, like that does play a part in it. We do have to make sure that we're taking care of our own safety, and as much as we should be able to go wherever the hell we want to whenever we want, it's just unfortunately that's just not how society is really right now. So
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it actually sometimes is. It can be more of a curse than a blessing, to be
mhm.
honest. Because me being an actor, it stops me a lot of times from going out and really being social.
Okay,
Because I'm just like, nope, I ain't got time for that. I don't feel like people, et cetera, et cetera. So while on one end it's like it's a good thing you protect yourself, it on the other side it's definitely a con or a curse, whichever, because it does stop me from being, the Tony that I know I can be in terms of being social, in terms of networking and connecting with people. So it has a balance of both. It has a balance of both.
okay. And you live in Atlanta, which is like one of it's like the Hollywood for Black media. I think
Yeah.
that in New York are. So what what is it like being in a community where a like I said, black media, black actors, black artists, everything are accepted more than they are in a lot of the country. But also, like you having the added layer of being a transgendered woman on top of that, is there a community there that you feel safe in that you like have connections with? Is it a big group, big community there? Because I know like the Sahara who I interviewed first, she lives in Cleveland, Ohio, and there's actually not a really big community to where she can interact with people who go through that same journey that she went through. So she kind of felt alone going
Mm.
through it. So, like, what do you have the opposite effect there? Is there a big community that makes you feel like home there?
I wouldn't say there's a community within media, so to speak. I feel like a lot of times, like even when I was doing background, I was the only, unless you were that passable that I couldn't even clock it, I was the only trans woman out there.
Okay.
Um, and I've been a lot of times the only trans woman out in whether even when it came to LGBT series like web series. When I first started, I didn't see nobody. And
Wow.
I'm seeing the girls really come out and do their whole acting situation. But when it came to acting classes, it was very heavy on the cis. Now, what their sexualities were, I don't know, or what their gender identities were. Well, gender identities that is cis, but mainly it was cis people. So I think for me, I use that to kind of motivate me to create a space of my own and like doing my own improv classes where I invite anybody from the community or outside the community to come in and just do improv. And for me, that's a safe space that I've created for me and people like me, or like-minded people like me as well, because I feel like a lot of times, when I'm out in the cis world, like you do feel like a lot of like, are they looking? Like, what are they saying? Or they're judging? And who wants to be dealing with all that? I'm here to act and be
Hmm.
another character, but I can't even get into the character because I'm too much in my head thinking about what's going on in my surroundings. So I wouldn't say in media, in terms of like LGBT organizations, somewhat. And I used to be in a organization or a group with an organization called Transparency, where trans people, we sat around and talked about our stories. We'd even have a meeting where we included the LGBTQIA, etc., to learn about our stories too, because I feel like that's a big disconnect in our community, which is lack of education and sometimes ignorance because people don't care. Um, but yeah, so I wouldn't say it's a huge community like that, but we out there and we meet and we greet every now and again.
That's good. Something that I
Yeah.
just got educated on in the first episode of this series was that there's a thing called passing privilege in
Yes. Oh
in
yes.
in the trans community. What is it? So like what is that like what is as far as like the different sides of it, how different are both sides of the coins as far as you know?
Um. Well, the thing with passing privilege is you have the opportunity to say, yes, I'm trans, or you have to say, or the opportunity to be silent on it and just live your life and blend in with everyday cis society and nobody question who you are, question how you identify, etc. You just go under the radar. And who wouldn't want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of it, it when you don't have the passing privilege, you are more harmed, so to speak, because not only are you trans, people can visually see that you are trans. And so when you are in certain environments, people mess with you, people want to call you out, and yeah, and people can get really disrespectful. Some people hate crime just simply because of how you identify. I just followed a trans woman to the bus stop and mocked her, taunted her, and shot her. Thankfully, she survived, but I'm just like, it's stuff like that. Now, let that have been a passable woman where they didn't know, they probably woman did that. That's what a called her or something like that. You have to say they don't face any foolishness because I'm sure as much as passable that they are when it's time to be to.
From the story you were telling of walking to the bus stop, that's kind of where it went out.
Okay.
Uh,
So, well, recently I was saying, there was Texas. I don't remember which city in Texas, but he seen a trans woman, was taunting her, mocking her, misgendering her as she was walking to her bus stop, and he shot at her, and he shot her actually, and he admitted to shooting her and admitted to what he was doing, and they're trying to say it was a possible hate crime or a possible aggravated assault. So I'm just like, in terms of when you think of passing privilege, if that was a passable trans woman, that probably wouldn't have happened. They
yeah,
probably would have, catcalled her or something like that. But in the extreme of like shooting her because of who she was, no. So I think both have their pros, and even like to not be as passable can kind of you see who I am, then you know what you're getting yourself into from jump. Like there's nothing that it's still good to disclose or not, but they already know what's up from jump. So it's like either you pursue it or you. But when they're passable, that's obviously a conversation for later or whenever they decide to have that conversation. But each one has their pros and cons. But for
okay,
me personally, I mean, I have a degree of passing privilege to where I'm not always clocked and like out and about and being clocked and things of that nature. However, I have been clocked and I know some days are better than others. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, but I'm still a girl when you get down.
All right, that's what's up. But that's it. We actually went through all my questions. Do you have anything that you want to say? Any questions that you have? Anything at all? This is your time to shine before we go home.
Well, let me get out my list of questions. So okay, I like you mentioned you've had this is what part two of
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Okay, and then you say you've spoken to I think you said Jalen Hollywood. So like what motivates you to kind of have these conversations?
For me, it's a about educating myself, and I feel like because I have this platform, as I'm educating myself, I should also use it for other people to possibly get that same education on. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I think part of my story is that at one point in my life, I would have definitely been categorized as homophobic,
Okay.
and it took for me to get older. And I have a uncle
Mm-hmm.
who I love with all my heart. He's not even my blood uncle. He kind of just came into our family. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's gay. And I had to stop and think about it for one second. This person that I legit love with all my heart, I would do anything in the world for him. What sense does it make that I'm like afraid, or not afraid, but I don't openly welcome homosexual people? And so in thinking through that, it also then led out to the rest of the LGBT community, and especially when like the deaths are getting as high as they are, and I think of how far I've come and how far other people can possibly hopefully come as well. It's like I just want to share this education. I want to learn and I want to share it with people too.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's dope. Thank you. We appreciate it. Do you get like do you face like a lot of backlash from people that watch your show that like might categorize you as, oh well, he might be gay or he might be
oh,
trans
absolutely.
stuff like that? Yeah.
When I did the
How,
when I released the trailer for the first episode, because I did like this trailer the week before,
mhm.
and it was a video. I got so many. Oh well, I didn't know you like trans women. I didn't do this. You only doing that, and I'm like, really? Come on. And this is and that was my first time where I was like, if I'm getting this type of backlash, I can only imagine what actual trans women get. Like,
Mhm.
are people who do openly date trans women and stuff like that. It's like,
Right.
really? and it came from some people that I previously would have thought of as some of the most educated people on my timeline that I know, and I'm like, now I can't even have intellectual conversations with you anymore if that's the way you want to act.
Right.
So
Yeah, people are very many things. Um, so okay, so let me question your depth of like acceptance or tolerance. Let's see.
okay.
So like I know you from like looking at your page, like when you first hit me up and just going through your videos and stuff. Like you have a child, right?
Hmm.
So I won't use your actual child because I don't want to put no I want to jinx nothing. But say if you were to ever have a future child that did identify as LGBT, whether he or she was gay or gender nonconforming or whatever, or trans, like how would you respond to that? Being that you, like you said, you were once, I guess, considered homophobic. How would you respond to that now as you're opening up and being educated?
I, I think the key thing is in love, because at the end of the day, I think people need love to get through anything that they're going through. So that is something that I would like to think that would be my first reaction, is to love on them harder, because regardless of how it turns out, the situation turns out, they're going through a conflict, or they're going through something that they're feeling. So I think I would like to think that that would be my first reaction. But um I mean, that I think that's the key to all of it. Will I be shocked? Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'll it just be like continue like nothing happened, because there is going to be shock and an adjustment period. And I don't want to lie to myself that it's not, but overall, if I focus on the love, we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. I'm gonna be their father like I was before, so it doesn't matter.
Right. Well, and I always ask that question. Not I always. I always ask that question, but I ask that question because I feel like a lot of times people are very like they say they're supportive or allies, so to speak, but they're being supportive and allies from afar, from a
Mhm.
distance, like I mentioned earlier, and it's not until it hits their home where they actually have to personally deal with these things to where it's like, okay, now my allyism or my support or my acceptance of what I thought I was supporting and accepting is like really now being called into question because it's hitting home.
Yeah,
So I like to hear people's perspective on that because I mean people do gag. People do
yeah,
gag. You never know. You never know. I like to think for me being trans is not anything but a soul thing. My soul is female and it was just put into the body that it was put into. And so now this body has to transform to match who she is on the inside and always has been. So that's how I like to think about it. I'm just catching up with me basically. Catching up with
okay, that's what's up.
I don't know. Do I have any other questions for you? I don't think so. Oh, who is our mutual friend?
Jordan,
Who is Jordan?
hold on, let me tell you. Do
Because
do
when you
do.
said Jordan, I was like, Jordan.
Hold on, I'm gonna show you a picture, and I'll edit this
Wait,
and make
is
it.
she from? She live in Texas.
Yeah, from St. Louis.
Oh, oh, Jordan, Jordan.
Yeah,
Okay, okay. I know who you're talking about.
yeah.
Hey, Jordan, if you're watching, I, well, I know you're not watching currently because this is to be out later. But okay, I got you, Jordan. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jordan. So, what she told you about me? Is that how that happened?
Yeah, she saw the video that I posted, and she responded, and she was like, I'm gonna put you in contact with my friend." I was like, "Oh, I'm all for it. Thank you for that." And then next thing I know, so
That's
she
dope because she could have definitely came on here and did it herself. But being a sister and supporting another sister, that's dope. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate you.
she's awesome, ain't she though?
She
She's
is. And she
yeah.
cracks me up when she's on her Facebook Live just going in. I love it. I love it. But and then lastly, I will say, so in terms of acting, my career, there's a show called P Valley that's coming on the Stars Network, the same network as Power, and I am on the show. And
Uh-oh.
so I know, right? So this season I'm on one episode so far. It's episode 105. But should they get renewed for a second season, my character will be a reoccurring character. So y'all just Keep me in your prayers, and we're gonna pray for season two. I think the show is gonna be absolutely amazing, and season two, three, four, five, six, seven worthy. But you know, networks and numbers is all about the numbers at the end of the day. So we're gonna pray for some good stuff. But yes, so that's the next big thing for me. But in the meantime, just auditioning. You know, if there's anybody out there looking for love, no, she's single and lives in Atlanta. No, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Is that that's coming up? That's coming up for me. And thank you for reaching out. And
Oh,
so what was so crazy about it was, you know how stuff is like in your request box and you don't see it.
uh-huh.
And when you had followed me, I was like, oh, who is this? And I went to your page and that first video about deconstructing transphobia, I was like, oh, that's dope. And I seen you saying, you know, let me know if there's, you know, anybody. So that's when I was like, I'll email you. And then I tagged a few trans men that I know as well, because I know you said you wanted some trans man perspective as well. So, and then I look at my inbox and it's like, oh, he had already sent me a message. So I didn't even realize.
Yeah, the trans men that you tagged, I'm gonna be reaching out to them for the next episodes, which is important too. So I want to thank you for that
Yeah.
because they definitely reached out, and I'm definitely gonna be working with them. So
Definitely, because I think trans women are always put at the forefront when it comes to this whole trans movement. But we definitely got to allow or make space and room for our brothers and the ones that want to speak up. Because I know a lot of them live pretty much tough lives. I think it's easier for them to live under the radar than us because the
mhm.
transition. But you know, whatever.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, you thanked me. I want to thank you. Really, I know this. We had fun with this conversation, but it's difficult for a lot of people to talk about, especially with someone you don't know at all, other than this recording. So, thank you for being open to educate me and my listeners. So,
No problem. I'm just happy to be here and to say, you know, what I got to say.
do you want to leave them with your social media before we go?
Yes. My social media is the, and let me spell it out because people think I'm saying the, but the, so THE or the, and then Toni Toni Bryce Bryce, and that is on Twitter and on Instagram. Love always Tony B on Snapchat, or you can just do Toni Bryce on Facebook, and you can add. Um, yeah, I'm an open book. So if anybody has any other questions or want to expand on any topic of conversation, you can hit me up. Just know that I don't argue about who I am. I am who
Say
I am.
that again.
I do not argue and debate about who I am. So don't ever come to me with that because you will get left on red.
Well,
Just
there
say.
you go. And I think that is the best way to leave this off. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Peace.